Hello, my name is William Kumwembe, and this is the Cauldron, where editors meet. And in the program, we discuss topical issues that have a bearing in the country, issues that are making headlines on the local scenes. And also, we go international, discussing issues that are topical on the international scenes. And the third and last segment of the program, we focus on issues that are to do with journalism, how men and women who uses the pen to convey the message dealing their day-to-day business. And joining me in the studios is Aubrey Mchulu, who is editor of The Nation under the Nation Publications Limited. Welcome to the program, Aubrey.
Thank you, William.
First things first, the first segment, the greatest U10. I think that's what made headlines in the course of the week.
Yeah.
6 days after rejecting Ombudsman Martha Chizuma's new ACB director, the Public Appointments Committee of Parliament on Monday yielded to mounting public pressure and confirmed her, finally, I would say. We would call it dramatic U10, isn't it?
Yeah, we got quite a dramatic U10, considering that this is the same committee which a few days earlier had rejected confirmation of Martha Chizuma as the new ACB Director General. So few days later is when they came up to, they reversed their decision amid public pressure, which included a planned street demonstration by, I think, HRDC and other stakeholders. So a day before the demonstrations is when they also rescinded their decision. So for now, I think that's what we can say, because of course, I think yesterday, the other day, was it on Tuesday, in Parliament, PAC chairperson, MP for Mwanza, is it Joyce Chitsuro? Yeah, she submitted a report to the Speaker. You recall that I think a day or so after the rejection of Chizuma as the ombudsman, as the ACB director. Yeah, I think the leader of the House, Richard Chimwendo Banda, had moved a motion asking that PAC should give a report to Parliament on how the proceedings went on in the proceedings to confirm or to assess the suitability of Martha Chizuma as the ACB Director General. So I think
victory to the people, where we can say they had no other way to go about it.
Yeah, I think we can say that, because that's reading comments and the reactions on the various social media platforms and even in other discussion groups, you'll find that it appears the majority of the people were in support of the choice of Martha Chizuma as the Director General of ACB. Perhaps this is coming from the background of her performance at the office of the Ombudsman, where in recent years, I think there has been a lot of activity and drive in fighting for protecting the people's rights, I should say. It started with the issue of the tractor gate. There have been investigations into a number of institutions, the recruitments and the like, and even various contracts as well. So I think judging from that drive she had as the head of the office of the Ombudsman, I think that's one thing maybe the people feel that she can also help in the fight against corruption.
We'll discuss Martha Chizuma's credibility or caliber a little later in the program. But let's talk about the members of Parliament, precisely PAC. What does this entail about the conduct of MPs? Should we say they hearken to the wishes of the people?
This is not the first time the MPs, I think previous cohorts of MPs have also conducted themselves maybe in a way we can say that the public was not happy with the appointing authority, because I recall during the late Bingu's time, his candidate for the Inspector General, I think that was Mary Nangwale at that time, was also rejected by the committee, but she continued to serve. I think there was also another director for ACB, and of someone, I think if my memory serves me right, who was also, I think rejected. I think it was rejected by the same ACB, or there was some complications as well in the appointment. They have been doing this, but they have been when such things happen, William, it also gives room to a lot of speculation and allegations. So we have seen people or heard some people alleging that money exchanged hands and that some of the MPs were compromising, that they were given some handouts, but so far, of course, no one has proved that, because people are mentioning varying amounts, which they allege.
But no person is being mentioned to connect to the amounts.
To the amounts, because I think what you have seen in some posts and some reactions, people are just saying corruption, the cartel of the corrupt was trying to influence and block her appointment into this position. So that is something for another day, I think, as well.
What does this whole conversation tell about the 193 members of parliament?
I think it reflects badly on our legislators, not only the current cohort, even in the previous sessions. We have had some critical laws which were to be passed. It is natural for organizations or interest groups to lobby MPs. So that doesn't only happen in Malawi, it happens all over. They have to lobby MPs to pass or to push their agenda through parliament and the like. But in the recent years, what is transpiring is that most of the times, I could be wrong, but most of the times it's like the MPs use their party. I remember the Bankers Association was lobbying the MPs, but at that time we heard that the MPs refused to meet the association in Lilongwe. They said they needed to meet them when at the lake. They should foot their fuel and the accommodation allowances and the like, and so it was. Those are some of the things they use this as their position as a carrot, which they dangle to people. That it's like sometimes they behave in a manner that it's like they go for the highest bidder in whatever, which is a dangerous path to take.
Dangerous path to take, as you're saying. How should the voters encode this?
Sadly, the voters, the framers of our constitution, William, in the 1994 constitution, they had a provision. I think it was section 64. 64, I think, which empowered the voters to take their MPs to task. It was popularly called the recall provision.
Recall provision.
It was like if we feel that as a constituents, you feel that the MP is not delivering, I think there were some processes which were to be set or were in place, which could now entail that you can ask the speaker, and then the due processes will be followed, and if there's a justification in the case, then an MP would lose a seat. But the MPs, I think the first cohort on the Matmatera, I think the 94 to 99, quickly removed that from the constitution, because I think it empowered it put them in the spotlight and they empowered the voter. That so they didn't want the voter who put them in office they didn't want to go. In other words, it's like from the word go, they didn't want to be accountable to the voter who put them in office, but they want to be put in office and then do as it pleases them or their the parties to which they are affiliated and the like, which is not good for the voter. It's a raw deal.
It's a raw deal as you're putting it. In other words, it's all about a group of people setting terms and conditions of service for themselves.
Yes.
Now, back to the Monday issue.
That's a bad actually governance.
It needs some rejigging, so to speak.
Yes.
Back to the Monday issue. The confirmation of Martha Jizuma on Monday couldn't go without drama. We noted 4 DPP MPs walking out of the room in protest. Why is DPP against Martha Jizuma, or specifically these 4? I
don't know why they are against this the appointment, and why they protested. But when you look at it, looking at because so far there hasn't been a clear report or explanation, even from the 4, and even I think the chair, maybe it's in the report which was submitted to the speaker on Tuesday, but I think would do better as a media maybe to trace, to take to task the individuals on why they were doing that. Or also, in other ways, it could also be that they are among those who voted against her in the first vote, and maybe their conscience was not with them that they should do it at this time again. So we can only speculate.
We can only speculate, as you're saying, the number of allegations and speculations. But one clear thing that we can see is that looking at the process, politics is at play.
Yes.
I would go.
You can't rule out.
You can't rule out it. I would go by the first voting process, where others would score the least. One. And within the very same team, others would score 25. What does this depict?
It shows that even the scoring process itself is 40 somewhere. Because meaning where one would give 20, one would give 10, and then someone gives a 1. And I think it calls for transparency in the whole process. People should be able to know there are a number of public officers whose appointees are subjected to this scrutiny by assessment by the Public Appointments Committee of Parliament, and that calls for the need for the public to know what is it that goes on in that committee. Elsewhere, such public hearings or assessments are even conducted in public, live on TV, even the radios, in other countries. I think in Kenya is one of them, where some appointees, including anyone, can bulldoze their way, and we can give, and the allegations will keep coming up that there is always some money exchanging hands behind the scenes to influence some decisions. Because
the next question would be, is this how our politics should be allowed, where some politicians are deliberately blind not to see what is greater good for the general public?
We need to move on and make progress as a country, and that should also extend to politics. I think the Chichewa for politics of Ndali and the like shouldn't be. I think it's time we moved on and do civilized politics, where people should see the greater good for the country, and also be fair in assessing others. It shouldn't politics or ethnic grouping and association, or even religious association, should not be factors to influence an appointment of any deserving public officer into office.
Other views suggest that the Public Appointment Committee of Parliament has been bullied by the public for doing their job. What's your take? Yeah, you can say that to an extent. There was a lot of pressure on them, and but I still feel that bully could be too strong a word. But maybe we should see what is the justification of their first decision in
in the report which they have submitted to Parliament as demanded by the leader of the House, which they have, I think the chairperson Julie submitted this week. So, because in that report, the committee was supposed to explain how it arrived at its decision and the like. So, after seeing that report is when I think we can now assess the rationale behind their first decision and what influenced their second decision.
Because a follow-up or the other extreme of that question is, are MPs free to vote irrationally? That's the other extreme of the school of thought.
Yeah, ideally they should be free to vote.
As irrational as others are thinking that this decision was. that's an opinion out there in the streets.
My take is that MPs should be free to vote based on what they feel is good for them and for their country, or for their constituents, I should say, because they represent the constituents across the country through their respective constituents. So ideally, they are supposed to vote. That's what they are supposed to do in the House.
Earlier on, I said we'd get back to the character in the conversation. One Martha Chizuma. This could be a vote of confidence, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a vote of confidence from the public and the several anti-corruption campaigners, I think.
Does it give her an extra responsibility, a daunting task, a challenge on her shoulders?
Yeah, it's okay. The public wanted her, and she got the job. You recall there was this job was advertised, and there were I think 30-something applicants. They were shortlisted, I think 10 or so. Then she was in that shortlist, and then there were the 3 of them, from which the president picked her and submitted to the Public Appointments Committee for confirmation. But yeah, that is we can say she's the People's SCB director, but that also exerts pressure on her in the new role, because you agree with me that these are 2 different roles: the ombudsman and the SCB director.
Now, talking of when all is said and done, has Martha Chizuma's
political will as well? The strong political will can be demonstrated even through the funding to not only the SCB but other governance institutions like the National Audit Office, even the police. They have their own investigations. I think fiscal police. There are also the institutions like the Directorate of Public Prosecutions and the like. They own it. It's a chain. It's not just a one office or one person doing it. But for them to, if we can have good people passionate to fight corruption in all these institutions I've mentioned, but if they are not given the resources, then it will be back to square one. So yes, we have Martha. We have a new director of public prosecutions as well, and I think even the police and other institutions, the new faces, and even the president also was also campaigning on the platform of zero tolerance to corruption. So, but all that will only end up being a rhetoric if the offices or the institutions in the whole setup are not adequately funded to recruit people, to undertake investigations, and generally therefore they are not given resources. So there is more to fighting corruption, but this gives hope as well.
In essence, it's about creating a strong and resilient system.
Yes.
Still more, last but not least, should those with cases of corruption at ACB feel scared or afraid that there is a new sheriff in town?
I don't really think so, because the case, having a case is just one. Okay, you are innocent until proven guilty by a competent court of law. So I don't think it just because you have a case you should be scared. It also goes with the the weight of your evidence and the like. So it's not just that automatic that you should be scared. It depends, but of course people know what they did, so they can also be scared. That maybe looking at the pace, her work rate at the previous office, the ombudsman, maybe they will see that, because we have cases, corruption cases take long to investigate and even to prosecute. We have a case like the former President Mulu's one, which I think started 2006 or thereabout, but it's not yet been concluded. There are some cases, there are several other cases as well, which are not concluded due to various factors, including maybe prolonged investigations or lack of maybe some availability of some witnesses and the like.
Let's break a bit. Obre says there is not too much to be afraid if you are clear. There is no need for fear whatsoever. But the essence remains creating a resilient and strong system in the fight against corruption in the country. We'll be right back. This is the Cauldron. Welcome back. My name is William Kumwembe and this is the Cauldron on Times Television. I'm joined in the studios by Obre Mchulu, who is editor at The Nation Publications Limited, editor for The Nation newspaper. Second segment, Middle East on fire. Obre. US President Joe Biden this week voiced his support for a ceasefire after almost 10 days of violence between Israel and Palestinian militants in Gaza, telling Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, I like the pronunciation of that name, Benjamin Netanyahu, that the US was working with Egypt and other countries on halting hostilities. Surprisingly, the US again blocked a UN Security Council statement calling for a cessation of violence, once America not putting Israel under the status. What do you make of everything that has been happening the past 10 plus days?
Of course, first we can say there have been sad events, because we have seen people being killed, and these are unarmed civilians, and that is any loss of life is sad. But we can also say that the problem in Israel, we call it the Palestine or Arabo-Israeli conflict and the like, it's I think there is also a lot of double standards by the international community. You'll find that, for example, the US and the British, I think they tend to support this Israel. Then you have the other party. There is, I think, countries like Qatar, I think Iran, and others also support Palestine. And then the Israeli army is allowed to procure equipment and the like, which they use also to hit on their, can call in quotes, we don't need the quotes, enemies. And whereas on the other side, there is, I think, an arms embargo which stops the other side from getting armed. And these are also all involving international organization. So it's a complex issue, I can say, and but there's just also need for honesty on the part of the international community to resolve this issue.
Bring in figures. As a time we are discussing this, at least 212 people,
yes,
including almost 100 women and children have been killed in Gaza. That's according to the health ministry there.
Yes.
While in Israel, 10 people were killed. Should we say this is a senseless spiral of violence?
It is senseless. You have rightly put it. It is senseless. And as I said earlier on, there is need for the international community to work towards finding a lasting solution. Of course, the issue is bit complex, because you can say it was also sponsored by the West, the internet, the other countries I mentioned, because when they were creating this Israel, state of Israel, I think it was in the 1940s, 1948 or thereabout, when they created this. So when they have been having it, prior to that, there was still some tension based on the initial plans by the British government at the time, which culminated into the creation of this state of Israel.
You talked of the allies. What does the statement of the US president mean in all this conversation?
Okay, I think we can say that you mentioned about the other statement, I think by was it the UN?
UN, yes.
Yes, and then the president said this, but the US president also made his statement calling general for calm and peace, it should say it. There was the call for calm and peace. But I think what I can say is that these all sides should be walking the talk, because you find that there are these statements being issued, but then the situation on the ground does not tally with what is in the statements.
The fight between these two sides, Israel and Palestine, has been there quite long enough.
Yeah, it's been long enough.
To an extent, some commentator was saying it's been long enough that people have taken it as normal. What's the lasting remedy? As I said, the creation of Israel and they fight for. These people are fighting for. I think there's a land which they fight for. I should think the lasting remedy to this conflict, as I said, is for the international community to discuss, and then there should be a bargaining process, because what each side wants, people know it already. We are not really inventing the wheel. So what is needed now is to reach a compromise on the demands of each side. Of course, you cannot meet everyone's what they want, but there is need for to striking a balance and a compromise to find that can go a long way. But you see, the problem is that people discuss these things. That's the other contributing factor to the never-ending conflict in that area, because I think the other side does not trust also the international community, which we are talking of, the UN here, and then you have other influential members of the UN, like the US and the Britain, which are also on the side of on the side of Israel, and then maybe they feel that's the other end problem. So there is need for the UN and these superpowers also to see how they can strike a balance, because you cannot trust someone who is siding with your aggressor, and then they sit on another table and they tell you what to do, that there should be peace and the like. It's a hypocrisy, I should say. It's hypocrisy, as you're saying. If we are to bring the conversation closer at home, in the conversation, Egypt has been mentioned in a number of instances. Does this fight have any bearing on African political affairs? And an extension to that, does Africa have a voice towards ending the fight?
Africa as a continent. It may have a voice, but it will just be the PR, like if the AU makes a statement and the like. But Egypt, you cannot. Egypt has always been connected with Palestine, Israel, because it's a biblical story as well. You know the story in the Bible about this area. So that's why Egypt is on the African continent, but it has stronger and closer ties with that region. That's why they are also being brought into the equation. Yes.
Way forward, last but not least.
way forward, as I've already indicated, that there's need for people to go clean hands on the discussion table, and they should strike. They should work towards getting a consensus and a compromise to resolve. That would be a better way to resolve this.
On assumption that we'll find an entity with clean hands.
That's the problem.
This is the Cauldron, where editors meet. We'll be right back. Welcome back. My name is William Kumwembe with the Cauldron, a program where editors meet discussing a number of issues that are happening in the country, on the international scenes, and as well as issues that have a bearing on as far as storytelling in the country is concerned. I'm with Obren Chul, who is editor at The Nation. Last mile of the marathon, Aubrey. When Mibawa is in, most of the time I say this is the segment I love the most because it talks about us, where we sometimes choose not to be objective enough to analyze ourselves. When we look ourselves in the mirror and say, okay, I think we should have done this side and that side.
Have done better.
Nonetheless, the High Court sitting in Blantyre is hearing a case in which business person Thompson Pinganjira has been found to have a case to answer for allegedly attempting to bribe judges in the elections case. You remember that issue. The businessman has since entered defense, and so far he has made some jaw-dropping accusations bordering on defamation against some judges on the bench, as well as presiding judge herself, which all appeared in the media. We want to talk about the essentials of court coverage in this segment. I wanted to bring this case as a case study. In normal circumstances, the allegations should not have appeared in the media as they were bordering on defamation. But why did
you should have what you report in the media should be a correct account of what transpired in the court. So that's why with no issues like analysis and the like, but it has to be
just as
what transpired in the court. It has to be a correct account of that. So that's the qualified privilege which we used in that situation to publish the allegations against a number of officers, including I think the president, the vice president, the former president, and the other judges you have mentioned.
Generally, what are the ground rules for covering court cases which are acceptable regardless of the case?
In covering the court, just like in doing any other story, there is the issue of fairness and the balance. You have to capture both sides to the case, because in the court there is usually two parties, the defense and the prosecution, and then each side can parade the witnesses, or they can cross-examine each other's witness and the like. So you really need to strike a balance that if witness A said and made an allegation against the officer B, and then that is countered by another witness or the officer in question, that should also be reflected. It shouldn't be one-sided story. It has to be a true representation of the proceedings to avoid giving false information and even to undue influence, especially in the public court. Because when you're in court, the judge or the magistrate has all the evidence available, but we don't publish each and everything in detail. We pick. So in picking the areas we feel they are of public interest, we also need to balance that.
I said earlier on that if there is one segment that put our objectivity to test, is this segment. I want to ask you one question bordering on your assessment, your view, in as far as how we, the media, are reporting court cases. Should we say it's getting better or worse?
I can say we can still do better, there, I think we can do better, because there are always those. It's up and down. In recent years, it has been up and down. Sometimes, okay, there are some journalists who are doing a good job, but there are also others who are also letting the public and ourselves as a profession down. So that is one area we need to really improve. And the bottom line in covering the code is understanding the processes, the terminology used. And as a media, we are also supposed to, I think I can say, to simplify this, to unpack the terminologies. But what I've noted also in the recent times, that the problem could also be with us, even including us as editors, that just taking jargon and then pasting it in the newspapers, and it's even worse for the electronic media. The reporter just gives a microphone to a lawyer, and the lawyer just speaks all the technical jargon and the like, and then you wonder what message has gone to the audience. Because as a journalist, we are supposed to process the information we get for the public to get what is happening.
What needs to be done going forward? Some kind of trainings?
Yeah, I think we need these refresher training sessions on specific areas like court, your area, business reporting, and the like. In business, we have been doing good, but in court and even parliamentary reporting, I think there is a need for frequent sessions, even among ourselves, because there are also some good parliamentary and the court correspondents among us in the newsrooms. We need to utilize them and to impart the knowledge to colleagues. Then there are also, even better would be to work with the judiciary and the other institutions like the law school at Chancellor College, to have these sessions where people can also, the journalists can be equipped.
We are seeing a development in which microphones and cameras are slowly being allowed in a courtroom, things that were never there in the past. A credit to the judiciary. Yeah?
It's a credit to the judiciary and even the media, because you note that most of these developments started, I think, with the presidential election case, or I think, if I'm not mistaken, was it the first? But it was one of the cases where the media houses had to apply to ask for permission to be allowed in the courtroom, and the court, the judiciary, made a decision. Okay, they initially said no, they can only allow audio, but no video. So we can say that it's a good development. We are making, we have taken steps in the right direction, and I'm sure soon we'll be able to have even a live TV coverage of some of the landmark court cases.
Now that you've already talked about soon, how does the future look like in as far as, finally, that is from me, in as far as court cases reporting is concerned for Malawi?
With technology, modern media platforms, I think the public out there is eager for news, and as journalists, we are also exposed to how others are doing this elsewhere, the reporting and the like. So I think we really need to do more to learn, even online. I mentioned about the sessions with other institutions and the like, but even as individuals, we also need to do our self-upgrading in terms of reading online and the like. There are a lot of lessons on how we can improve, but I think the future looks good. We just need to put our houses in order and have dedicated teams of court reporting, which can be empowered through training and the like. Because at the moment, I think the other problem with that affects coverage of various aspects is because maybe most media houses, they don't have a big budget, so they tend to multitask. So you find the reporter is doing it today, is covering a court, tomorrow is doing this and the like, whilst elsewhere there's that specialization. I would love to see one day that we should have media houses having dedicated court reporting teams, as it happens with business reporting, sports reporting, and the like. In that way, I think we will give the readers, our audiences, a good deal of the coverage.
As you say, the future looks good. We just have to put some sections within the house in order. What an objective expression of how we are faring. I like it that way. I think if there is anyone to trust, the media is there to be trusted.
Yes.
We are as objective as we should be.
We should be, yes.
No, Aubrey, thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you.
Aubrey Nchuru is editor of The Nation under the Nation Publication Limited. My name is William Kumwembe. On behalf of the entire production team, that's how we conclude today's edition of the program, The Cauldron. Till next week, bye for now.